there, Frederick. My name's Ashley. I'm a student physical therapist at Owens Community College, and today I'm going to be doing some stretches and exercises for you for the rehabilitation of that left hip. So I have some notes over here in case you see me peering off. This is the wrong page. Some notes over here, just because there's a lot of information that I want to go over with you, and if you see me peering off, that's what that's for. So the first thing that I want to address with you is your hip flexion. So I noticed in your initial evaluation, you had some pretty limited range of motion in that area. So something that I wanted to do to address that is called supine single leg hip flexor stretch. So we're going to be doing a stretch for this. And I will show you in a minute, but I kind of want to tell you a little bit about this stretch before I show you and then have you try it. So a couple of reasons why I chose this stretch for you is to help with your range of motion. So I saw that you had a pretty, like I said, pretty significant lack of range of motion from your evaluation. And while we're healing, we want to be cautious to prevent this muscle from being shortened and be able to get it through that range of motion so that we can be able to get you to walk again and walk efficiently and to protect your safety, to maintain your safety as you're walking. The second reason why I chose to do this intervention with you is to help you to get dressed. So I know that getting your pants on, sometimes you have to bend over and lift your pants up. So this stretch will help you to be able to do that range of motion and bend over and pull up your pants. Okay, so Frederick, for this stretch, I'll have you laying on your back on whatever surface that you want to, bed, a table, whatever works for you. Or not a table, but like a therapy table. You know what I'm getting at. So I want you to kind of scoot your body off to the side, and obviously this will just be the left side since that's the affected side, as you're laying down. So as you're laying down and you're letting this hip kind of hang off the edge of the table, and you're maintaining your stability as you're on there, so you might want to grab onto like the edges of the bed or the edges of the table just to make sure that you stay on. And then you're just going to let that left leg kind of hang off the edge of the bed, and you're going to let gravity do the work there. So you're going to totally relax that left leg as you're letting gravity kind of stretch that out, as you're letting it kind of hang off the edge of the bed there. So a couple of things that I want you to keep in mind for this stretch. I want you to keep your shoulders back on the table. If you kind of lift your shoulders off the table, that could... sorry, I lost my words. That could make you roll off whatever surface that you're on, and that is something that we don't want. So try to keep those shoulders back, keep those hips back on the table as well. You don't want to roll those hips forward for the same deal, just to maintain your safety throughout the stretch. And then I want you to really relax that left leg as you're letting it hang, okay? So one thing that I don't want you to do while you're doing this stretch is to pick up that right hip as you're letting that left hip drop, just so that you can maintain your safety throughout this. Not only does it prevent the stretch in that hip, but it also can compromise your safety and then encourage you to fall off the table, which we don't want. So one thing that you can do while performing this stretch to make sure that you're stretching the right muscle is to keep your hand kind of on the front of that hip here. I know you can't see. I know I'm sitting kind of weird, but right there in the front of the hip, like underneath where that bony kind of hip protrusion is. I know that like bony area that pokes out. Right underneath that area, and as you're letting that leg hang, you'll feel that start to lengthen as you're letting that hip hang, and that'll let you know that you're stretching the right area. So something that I'm going to do while you're doing this stretch is I'm going to keep my hand right above that hip, that right hip, to make sure that you're not rolling it forward. And if you feel my hand tap that hip, then that should remind you that, hey, I'm rolling my hip forward. This is kind of this is going to compromise my safety. So that'll remind you to bring that hip back and maintain your hips flat on the table as you are letting it stretch. So one reason that I would want you to stop the stretch would be if you feel like you aren't able to maintain your balance in this area. There's a bunch of different things that we can do in therapy. So if you feel like you can't maintain your balance and that's a safety issue, then we can definitely address this and try to modify the stretch so that it's more safe for you. So if you do feel like that stretch is too advanced, if it's too unsteady, or if you're uncomfortable doing it, then I would want you to stop that stretch. Okay, so now kind of show you what the stretch is about. So I've got a big old setup here, so I gotta move this stuff around. And I don't have that big of a surface area to work with, but you'll kind of get the idea as I'm doing this. Okay. Alright, so to do the stretch, you'll obviously have your leg straight. This is the right leg, right? So we're just doing that left leg. You're laying back, and then you're just gonna let this leg drop with gravity. So I'm keeping my hips back. I feel this stretch. I've got my hand here to make sure I'm doing the stretch right. And then just letting gravity do the work and stretch this, okay? This is totally relaxed as I'm doing this. I know my foot's kind of on the ground right now. Just imagine I was on a higher surface. It would be totally relaxed. And I'm maintaining that stability, not rolling my hips forward to fall off the edge of the bed, and just staying completely neutral and letting gravity work at stretching that hip, okay? So you'll, for that stretch, my little setup's all gone now. It's not as tall. Okay. All right. So for that stretch, I want you to hold that stretch for about 15 seconds. So as you're letting that leg hang off the side of the bed, I want you to let it hang there for 15 seconds and then bring it back up gently and then relax for about 60 seconds, and so relax for that 60 seconds and then repeat the stretch 4 times on that left side. All right, I'm going to review your next exercise, so I will be right back. Hi there again, Frederick. It's Ashley again. So for your next exercise, I wanted to address your internal rotation. So I know that you're not able to internally rotate, which is just this motion here. I'll show you. So internal rotation would be bringing that knee kind of in towards you. And I want to address this with you because per your protocols, you're not able to do this motion right now, but this is something that's pretty important in daily activities, so I want to maintain the integrity of that. So a couple of reasons that I wanted to do this stretch with you is to help you to get back to work as a resource officer. So I know as a resource officer that you have to maintain student safety, which might involve you having to get to places in a pretty short amount of time, aka running. So this motion is critical when planting your feet and turning and when running. So if you needed to like go down the hallway, you might need to internally rotate to kind of bring those legs over and just switch directions as you're rounding the corner in the hallway. And then the second reason I wanted to do this stretch is to eventually help with that range of motion when those protocols are limited and that you're able to perform that again without any pain. So this would be something that is a protocol because it could affect the prosthesis, basically the mechanism that they put into your body. So that's why they avoid this, but we can still work on this without doing that motion, if that makes sense. Yes. So we can stretch these muscles without performing that motion is what I'm trying to say. So the stretch that I want to do with you is called a piriformis stretch, and I want you to do this in supine. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about it, and then I'll show you. So for the stretch, I want you to lay flat on your back. When you're ready, I want you to gently pull that ankle up over that knee. So when you pull that ankle up over your knee, I want you to bring the back of your heel and kind of slide that up. So your left foot will be over the right knee. So you're gently kind of putting that up over the right knee. And then the right ankle, so the right foot, is going to slide that knee up and eventually get it to stretch as you're pulling that opposite leg up. So the left leg's just kind of going along for the ride, and the right leg is going to be the force that's going to be pulling the knee up. So I want you to bring that ankle up to and drag it up to your butt, and then let the right leg gently stretch the left. So once you feel a gentle stretch in that like kind of low back outer hip area, I want you to hold this for 30 seconds and relax as you're doing this. And we'll stretch this 4 times on that left leg and take a minute in between each of the stretches to be able to relax. And as you're doing this, I want you to keep a couple things in mind. So I want you to keep that leg below 90 degrees. So as you are bringing that left leg up along for the ride, the right knee is coming up. Don't bring that right leg or that left knee over the hip. You want it below 90 degrees because this could affect the mechanisms that they put into your body. So keep that left leg below 90 degrees. And then make sure that your shoulders are flat against the table. Leaning forward could make you bend more at the hip, and that's something that we want to avoid. We really want to be careful of that motion of bringing that kind of, this motion of bringing the knee or the hip up in a flex position. So shoulders are flat, you're not bringing that knee above 90 degrees, and then your hips are flat on the table as well. So you're keeping that back flat and the hips flat against the table. So one thing that I don't want you to do while you're performing the stretch is to bring that leg up too far. I want you to keep it below the hip, not going over the hip. Keep it below 90 degrees, and I will stress this. So one thing that you can do while you're performing this stretch is to make sure that you're stretching the right muscle is, so kind of here I'm doing it sitting, it's kind of the same motion, but you're really gonna feel it kind of in your, almost in your glute, but not really, on the outer hip, in the glute, kind of in your back almost. So you'll feel it in this area, and as you're bringing it forward, you can really feel it above here, kind of like, what would that area be? So you feel, what you can do is to feel that kind of, protruding hip bone, right? Come over all the way, like kind of back behind your belt line, and then bring it back under, kind of on your glute, and you'll really feel the muscle in here start to stretch as you're bringing that leg up and then coming back down. So one thing that I will do while you're performing this exercise is I'm going to keep my hand above that left knee where I want you to stop at. So if you feel my hand tap that left knee as you're bringing it up, I want you to take that as a cue to not go beyond that point. So that would mean that you're going too far, and just to relax, keep that stretch, and then bring it back down. So one reason I would want you to stop would be if you were unable to keep your like knee flat as you're performing this. So if you were performing this and you were kind of like not able to keep it flat down, but you were like this, it would cause, again, this motion, and we really want to be careful of that. So if you are unable to keep that knee flat as you're bringing it up in like a figure 4 position, then I would want you to stop that exercise, because that would possibly affect the mechanisms in your leg, and we can find a different activity to do that would prevent that, or make it easier almost. So I'll show you the stretch now. So the stretch, you will be flat on your back. So this is my left hip, right? This is my right. So as you're laying here, you'll gently, and I'll show you here, gently just bring that knee up and kind of creep it over that ankle, over that knee. Okay, so we're here now. So the right leg, your hip, your heel is going to be coming back towards you, towards your rear end. So you're bringing this gently up, keeping this knee flat in a figure 4. As you can see, it's kind of like a 4. And you're bringing the heel back, and you're stretching, 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 and you should feel it back here so your hip is back. And you're feeling back here to make sure you're maintaining the stretch. And my knee is flat, bringing it up, really feeling that in that glute, not glute, in your back area. And then I want you to hold this, and then relax. All right? Keeping it below 90 degrees. Okay. I will go ahead and review your next exercise. All right, be right back. Hey there again, Frederick. So the next exercise I want to do with you, or more of a stretch, is called a single leg frog stretch. So for this stretch, a couple of reasons why I chose to do this stretch with you is because I know right now you're unable to do that motion. So you're not able to do that hip adduction, which is just bringing that leg back into center. So if you were away, then you would have to bring it over. But more so, what you're not allowed to do is to cross that leg over. So we want to prevent doing that. But these muscles are also important. So we want to make sure that they're able to perform this motion without pain, because this is a pretty important motion when you're walking and when you're doing daily activities. So we want to do this with the least amount of pain as possible. So stretching will help to reduce that pain. And then the second reason why I wanted to do the stretch with you is to help you to get back to work as a resource officer. So no, being a resource officer, you have to maintain the safety of children or your students, depending on wherever you are. You could be in college, so wherever you work at, maintaining the safety of others. So maintaining the safety of others, you might need to perform some explosive movements in an urgent situation. So stretching this will help to prevent the pain so that you're able to perform this motion without having any pain, and that way you can kind of jump to the side if you need to in an urgent situation. So to perform this stretch, I want you to lay down on your stomach, and when you're in position, I want you to you're gonna flare out your leg a little bit like a frog. So it'll be that left leg that you're flaring out. The right leg's gonna stay straight the whole time. You're doing all the work with that left leg. So you're going to frog out that knee, and your hip's gonna be out to the side, and I'll show you here in a second. But you're slowly going to bring that knee up further and further, but not going beyond 90 degrees. So that thigh is not going over that hip. You're keeping it right below it. So when you get into that position and you feel that stretch on the inside of your thigh, I want you to hold this position for 20 seconds, and then I want you to perform this stretch 4 times on that left hip, and then take a 60-second break in between each of those stretches. So a couple of things that I want you to keep in mind while you're doing this is I want you to keep your hips flat on the table. So if you were to pick up your left hip as you're performing this, that takes the slack off of the inside muscles of your thigh, and it makes the stretch ineffective. So we really want to keep those hips down on the table as you're performing this stretch. Second, I want you to relax your leg as you're doing this stretch. So I don't want you to try doing anything too intense. This should just be really subtle, really relaxed, and just to help with the tension in those adductors there. Lastly, I want you to keep your shoulders down as you're performing this stretch. If you bring your torso up a little bit more, it might make the stretch more intense in some areas, and I want you to just target those muscles that we're targeting as efficiently as possible. So if you were to lift up your shoulders, it might make the stretch less effective. So one thing that I don't want you to do while performing the stretch is to lift that left hip off of the table, as this would make the stretch less effective. And then one thing that I want you to do while performing this stretch, just to make sure that you're really stretching those muscles that we are trying to target, is to just put one of your hands on the inside of your thigh as you're bringing your leg up, and you really feel those muscles start to lengthen and stretch. So one thing that I'm going to do while you're doing this stretch is I'm going to keep my hand above that left hip. And as you're performing the stretch, if you feel my hand tap the back of that left hip, that'll be a cue for you that you're lifting that hip. And I really want you to just, and that would mean that I would want you to bring that hip back down flat on the table so that you're performing the stretch correctly. So one reason I would want you to stop the stretch is would be if you were to be unable to keep that hip flat on the table. So if it was way too hard to keep that hip flat on the table, it would just be ineffective not only in the hip but in other areas too. It could compromise. So if you are unable to keep that hip flat, then I would want you to stop, let me know, and then we can make some modifications to make it more effective for you. All right, so to show you the stretch, I will be on my stomach here, and my shoulders are flat against the floor. So now I'm going to kind of frog this leg out, and I'm going to gently and slowly bring it up so that's below 90 degrees. Now I'm really keeping my hips flat against the floor here, and I'm just going to hold it. Now you would hold for 20 seconds, and then I'm going to relax, take a 60-second break in between, and then repeat again. So slowly bringing that up. Now it's okay if you feel like you have to lift that hip up to bring it up here, but just as you get into that position, bring it back down. Let it relax. Let it do its thing, and let those inside muscles stretch. So one more time, and I'll do it with that hand that I told you to put on your inner thigh so that you know where to put it at. So again, bringing that up, keep it below 90, keep those hips forward, and then I can put my hand on the inside of my thigh here, and I can really feel those muscles start to lengthen as I put my hip up more. And then bring it back down. Okay. All right. So now we're going to move on to some strengthening exercises. So I'm going to review those, and then we will move forward. So I'll be right back. Hey there, Frederick. It's Ashley again. So next up, I want to address your hip extension. So basically, this is the movement of just bringing that hip back. Now notice my knee is straight as I'm doing this, and I'll get into that in a second. So this exercise that I want you to do is called hip extension with a band, and a couple of reasons why I chose this exercise for you. The first reason is to help you to return back to work. I know that with your work, running could be a possibility in urgent situations, so strengthening that those hip extensors can help provide power, so you can optimally run to your full capability. So I really want to strengthen this as much as I possibly can so that you are able to do that as efficiently as possible. So the second reason why I chose to do this exercise with you is to increase your strength overall. I saw that you have pretty good strength in your initial evaluation, but I know with your job duties that this could be a muscle, or this could be an action that is, what's the word I'm trying to think of? It's in high demand as you're doing it. So we'll increase the strength of this muscle, the muscles back in your leg for hip extension. That way you're able to get to places as efficiently as possible if need be. So to tell you a little bit about the exercise I'm going to be doing with you today. So I will have you standing for this, and I'm going to tie a band around some sort of stable area. So whether it's around like the bed of the legs of a bed, or the legs of a table, or something that's a sound kind of thing that you can wrap a band around and not have it move on you. So I'm going to wrap this band around something like a table, and I would have you put the band around the back of your ankle. And if it's uncomfortable, the tension of the band on the back of the ankle, we can place a towel barrier in between to make it more comfortable for you. But once you're in this position, I want you to start this exercise by pulling the knee or pulling the leg back. So when you're pulling the leg back, I want you to keep that leg straight and have all the motion come from that hip. So you'll bring your leg back against the resistance of the band and then control the motion as you're coming back into your starting position. So just standing there. A couple of things that I want you to keep in mind while you're doing your exercise. I really want you to maintain your good posture while you're doing this. So I want you to keep your shoulders over those hips and your ears over your hips as well. So it should all be in one line. Another thing I want you to do is I don't want you to kind of bend forward as you're doing this. So I really want you to just keep everything still as you're doing this. Your spine should be straight, ears and shoulders over the hips, and you're letting all the motion just come from that hip. The last thing I want you to kind of keep in mind as you're doing this is to not bend that leg. So a lot of people like to compensate by moving the knee as they're doing this. We're really focusing on the hip. So I really want you to maintain that straightness of that leg as you are pulling the band back and controlling it coming back in. So I want you to perform this exercise in 5 sets of 3 reps, and then in between each set, take a 60-second break in between. So one thing that I don't want you to do while you're performing this exercise is to use your knee. Your knee should be stuck in a straight position throughout the whole exercise. So one thing that you can do while performing the exercise is to put your hand on the back of your thigh, and as you're pulling the band back, you'll feel those muscles in the back of your thigh start to contract, and that's how you know that you're activating the right muscles. So one thing that I will do while you're performing this exercise is I'm going to keep my hand on the back of your shoulder. So if you feel my hand start to leave your shoulder, so it should be on your shoulder throughout the whole duration of your exercise. If you start to feel my hand start to leave your shoulder, then that would be a sign that you're leaning forward. So I really want you to keep that in mind, that if my hand leaves, that you should bring your torso back and keep everything in line and maintain that good posture. And keep those shoulders and ears over the hips. So one reason I would want you to stop performing this exercise would be if you were unable to maintain your balance as you're doing this. I know you have a rolling walker, so you can keep that rolling walker on you as you are doing this, or not on you, in front of you as you're doing this to help maintain your stability. But if you still feel unstable as you're doing this, then I want you to stop and let me know so that we can address this and make it as safe as possible for you. So to show you the exercise, I don't really have like an area to simulate. So let's imagine that this is the leg of a table and I've got a band around here. So this is my right leg, but let's pretend that this is your left. So the band would be around the back of the ankle, and then you're gonna face forward in front of you. So you got your rolling walker here, you're maintaining that stability, and then you're going to keep good posture and just bring that hip back straight and then control it coming forward. So to show you again, bringing the hip back, my leg is straight and coming back forward. And then to show you what the cue that I told you about, your hands on the back of your leg and you're bringing it forward and bringing it back and coming back forward and controlling the motion as you're coming back forward. Okay, we'll move on to the next exercise. I will be right back. Hi there again, Frederick. It's Ashley again. So the next thing that I want to address with you is your hip abduction. Sorry, I lost up on my words. So an exercise that I wanted to do to address that hip abduction is kind of playing off the one I just showed you previously with that extension, so bringing that leg back behind you. Now we're going to be kind of doing the same thing, but you're going to bring your leg out to the side now. So one reason I told you to do this, I chose to do this exercise with you, is to help you increase your strength in this motion. I saw that on your evaluation you're able to perform this motion against gravity This is functional, but we want to increase the strength so that you are as strong as you possibly can be, that I can work with you with. And then so that you're able to perform this motion with resistance. So another reason I chose to do this exercise is to help you to be able to move over to the side when you're walking. And this can help you to avoid any obstacles that are in your line of path right now. And then as you're going back to work again, if you needed to kind of shuffle away, or if you're like in a closed space, it could help you to, because you can only really move your legs out to the side if you're in a really close, compact area. So this will help you to perform that kind of side walking motion, if that makes any sense. So you're kind of just moving your legs out to the side and you're moving out this way. So it'd kind of be like this. Okay, so to tell you a little bit about this exercise before I show you, for this exercise, I'm going to use the TheraBand again, and it's going to be wrapped around the outside of your left ankle this time. So instead of behind, it's going to be on the outside of the ankle. And again, we can use that towel to help with that comfort in case that band irritates you. So once you've got your band around your ankle, you can keep that walker in front of you for your stability again. And once you're in position, I want you to pull your leg away from your side against the resistance of the band. And then as you pull away, you'll feel that muscle contract, and then control the motion as you're coming back to your starting position. So as you're bringing that leg back in, control it and don't let the band snap you back. So I want you to repeat this exercise in 3 sets of 5 repetitions, and then take a 60-second break in between each set. And then a couple of things that I want you to keep in mind while you're performing this exercise would be to maintain that good posture again. So keep your ears and shoulders over your hip. Your back should be straight the whole time, and you want to keep your legs straight too as you're performing this exercise, so that you let all the motion come from that hip. So one thing that I don't want you to do while you're performing this exercise would be to lean with your trunk in whatever direction that you're, or away from the direction that you're pulling away from. This can create a sense of that you're moving a little bit more than you actually are. So really keeping your shoulders and ears over here, keeping your trunk still as you're pulling your leg away, using your hip and bringing it back. So that you're not compensating any motion or driving any force as you're leaning away from the band. So really keeping that trunk still. So one thing that you can do while performing this exercise to make sure you're activating the right muscles is to put your hand on the outside of your left thigh. And as you're pulling your leg away from yourself and against the resistance of the band, you'll feel the muscles on the outside of your hip and thigh start to contract, and that's how you know that you're using the right muscles. So something that I'm going to do while you're performing this exercise is I'm going to keep my hands slightly away from you. So if you're doing this on your left side, I would keep it on your right, or keep it by your right shoulder. And if you feel my hand tap you as you're performing the exercise, this would mean that you're leaning with your trunk. So really, so take that as a cue to really keep that trunk stable and just move from the hip. One reason I would want you to stop performing the exercise would be, again, if you were unable to maintain your balance as you're pulling the band away. I know you have that rolling walker for stability, but we are working on your walking and stuff. So if you do feel unbalanced, I would want you to let me know. That way we can really maintain your safety through this, and we can make some modifications for it if we need to. So to show you the exercise, I'll show you over here. I don't have like a table or anything, so just pretend that the edge over here is my table, and I've got the band wrapped around it. So we're gonna pretend that this is my left leg, and I've got the band around me. And you can put your other foot in the band as well, but you're just not going to be using it. That way you don't have to kind of have stagnancy. You can just keep everything in line. So you got your rolling walker here, and the band's around my ankle, so I've got the resistance here on this leg. So I'm keeping my stability, my posture's good, my shoulders and my ears are over my hips. I'm gonna keep my trunk still as I'm doing this and keep my legs straight. My hands are on the walker, and I'm just gonna pull away. So I'm not very good with my balance right now, so sorry. So you'll pull away from the band and come back. And as I'm doing that, my leg is staying straight as I'm doing it. So to show you with that cue, you'll have your hand kind of on the outside of your thigh here, and then you really feel those muscles start to contract as you're bringing it out. Even up more towards your hip, actually. So kind of like right in this area as you're doing this, and then pulling out and coming back in, and really controlling that motion as you're coming back in. Okay, we'll move on to the next exercise. I will be right back. Hi again, Frederick. So the last exercise that I want to do with you today addresses your external rotation of the hip. So a couple of reasons why I chose to do this exercise with you is because when I was looking at your chart, I saw that you had some lack of strength in this motion from the evaluation. It looks like you're unable to move through this motion with moderate resistance, and this exercise will help to increase that range of motion with that moderate resistance so that you're able to do it the full way. And the second reason why I chose to do this exercise with you is to help you when you're walking down the hallways. I know that you have to patrol the school, make sure there's no suspicious activity, and to maintain the safety of students. So this will help you to turn as you're switching directions if a hallway change or something occurs. And that way you can patrol the area in an efficient manner. Okay, so to tell you a little bit about the exercise before I show you, I'll have you laying on your side with your left hip on top, laying on your right side with your left hip on top, sorry. And then I also want you to keep your knees slightly bent, kind of at a 30-degree angle. And then I'm going to put the band around your knees when your knees are bent, and then you will be in position to start. So once you're ready, you're going to keep your right leg quiet, so it's not really going to do anything. It's just there to kind of keep that resistance on the band, so that's your stable area. Your right leg's the stability here. So once you're ready, you will have your left knee pull away from the band, and you'll feel that resistance coming away from it. So you'll look like a clamshell as you're doing it. So you kind of look like this. But while you're doing it, I want you to keep your feet together, and then you'll open and close. So a couple things I want you to keep in mind while you're doing this. I want you to maintain control of your hips while you're doing this. So I don't want you to roll forward or backwards as you're performing this. I really want you to keep your hips in line with your torso and keep everything in a straight line with your knees bent. So your knees are going to be bent, and then your shoulders are going to be flat against the table too. So I don't want you to lift your shoulders up away from the table. Hips are in contact, they're straight with the torso, and then you're going to keep those feet in contact with each other throughout the exercise as well. So I want you to perform this exercise in 3 sets of 5 and take a 60-second break in between, and then just make sure to not roll those hips forward. So one thing I don't want you to do while performing this exercise is to roll your hips again, like I keep saying. This can make the exercise ineffective, and then it can activate muscles that we're not trying to target. It can also impact your safety as you're doing it, so it can encourage you to roll forward off the bed, and we don't want that. So one thing that you can do while performing this exercise to ensure that you're activating the right muscles is to put your hand on the outside of that left hip, and then you'll really feel those muscles contract as you start to pull the band away from, as you start to pull that left leg away from the right leg against the resistance of that band. So one thing that I'm going to do while you're performing the exercise, I'm going to keep my hand hovering in the back of your hip. So if you start to roll backwards, or if your hips start to roll forward, you'll either feel a increased pressure with my hip, or with my hand against your hip, And then if you do feel that increased pressure, that tells you that you're rolling too far backwards and that you need to roll them back forward. Or if you feel my hips start to, or you feel my hand start to leave the back of that left hip, that would mean that you're rolling too far forward and that you need to bring that hip back to line up with your torso. So if you feel like you're not able to maintain your hips in one place, I would want you to stop the exercise and let me know. So we can address this, and then we can make some modifications to actually activate the muscles that we are trying to activate. Okay, so to show you the exercise, we'll pretend that this is my left hip. So I've got my knees bent at a 30-degree angle, about, roughly. My feet back here are together, and then I would have a band around my knees here. And then to perform it, my hips are in line, I've got them bent, everything's nice and straight. My hand's gonna be on the outside of my hip, and then keeping my feet together, I'm gonna bring that hip away, or that knee away from that other knee as it's staying still. And I'll really feel those muscles start to contract back here. And then slowly control it coming back so that you control that range of motion and the band doesn't snap you back into place. So again, to show you, opening the knees and then coming back and really locking those hips into place. So my hips kind of rolled back right there. I really want you to keep in mind to keep those hips in place. And then one more time. My feet are in contact with each other, I'm pulling away, and then coming back forward. Okay. So those are the stretches and exercises I have for you today, Frederick. I know that was a lot of information for you, so if you need any clarification on anything, just let me know. I've got the repetitions and everything in the video, so if you need to watch or just email me to clarify, and then we will assess going forward. So I've got a home exercise program for you too for some of the exercises and stretches that we did today, and then I will go over those in a separate video. So it was nice to work with you today, Frederick. If you have any questions or concerns, just let me know, and then we'll move forward and see how you progress. So it was nice to meet you, and I'll look forward to working with you again. Thank you.